evening. Hello, I'm just making sure, there we go. Take a seat and we're gonna get started. Thank you all for coming tonight for our Buckwoods neighborhood meeting. I thought I would kick things off with just a little bit of an overview. My name is Terry Hover. I'm the Borough Administrator. I know many of you and I appreciate you coming out tonight. I just wanted to give you an overview of our program for tonight in terms of the format we're going to use. We're going to start with a presentation from the professional staff who will meet in a moment and some remarks from the mayor. We're going to go through all of our slides and then we're going to open up for question and answer. So I suggest as we're going through, if you have questions, try to take note, and if we don't answer them by the end of the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to ask that question. We are going to ask people to, when you get to the mic, just either make your comments or ask all your questions up front, and then we'll figure out who's best suited to answer it. It's just a lot easier than doing a lot of back and forth. And if we go through everybody and you still have questions, we'll just go back through and people will have a second chance to listen. We will be putting all the materials we present tonight up on our website after this meeting. And this is being recorded, and the recording will be up on our YouTube channel and on our website as well. So you'll have many opportunities. If something you want to look at it again, don't feel like you don't have another opportunity to see it. We're going to make it all available after the meeting. We do have a Zoom option tonight, so we'll see if folks join us that way. If they do, once we've answered the questions in the room, we'll take questions from the Zoom audience as we usually do at our meetings. So that's all I have for you until I'm sort of kind of welcome. And with no further ado, I'd like to bring up Mayor Foster.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our long overdue Buckwoods meeting. As many of you who are in this room are aware of the very long history of the Buckwoods, and now we are here to talk about the development and the litigation and what all has come together for tonight's meeting. I was a lot younger when we started this process. I feel like I've aged through this entire thing, but Buckwoods, as we all know, and as many of the neighbors know, have been a project that was started before my son was even born. And my son is in his 30s now. So that's how long we've been working at this process. And we have had our litigations, we have had pressures, and we have had many conversations. But tonight, we're here to go through some of the steps that we're taking to bring us to where we are tonight, and and how we are going to move forward. We are going to open up to questions and answers that you may have, and we are here to answer those questions and to move forward with the Buckwood process. But before I do so, going into the settlement agreements, talking about the renderings that we have in front of you, I want to thank my council colleague, Councilmember Hale, Councilmember Vargas, Councilmember Postelnick, Councilmember Hirsch, Councilmember George, Council President Stephanie Kim Chauhan. She is not here today, she's on vacation. And without them and the professional team would not have been able to get to this point where we are tonight. And I want to thank our Borough Administrator, Terry Hover. She has been on top of this for the longest time, keep us in line, and we just keep plugging in at it. Chris Casenza from LRP, our Borough Planner, Joe Bauman from McManaman, Scotland and Bauman, our special counsel that has been working with us on this. And a lot of teams have worked on this process to bring us to where we are. And I don't want to yammer on because I'm quite sure you're going to have questions and you want to look at the renderings. And at this time, I'm going to ask Joe to come to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Terry. So I want to begin by letting everybody understand that this is a little unorthodox, right? And what I mean by that is I'm the attorney. My job is to represent the Borough of Highland Park through litigation and settlement negotiations. And typically, we would not want to have this level of dialogue until we have done a deal we've approved, right? So I'm going to be walking the fine line of sharing as much as I possibly can, because the mayor and the council were adamant that we need to bring the public and the community in particular into the loop, while I was saying, okay, mayor, council, I'm going to try and do this in a way that doesn't jeopardize us at the same time. So I only say that as backdrop because this governing body, this mayor was adamant that we figure out a way to share as much of the information as we can while we're in the midst of active litigation and settlement discussions. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you is, I believe, a very robust explanation of the history, which many of you already understand and know, what we expect to consider as a good governing body at our upcoming meetings, how the process has evolved, and where we've landed. Again, in the context of active litigation, active settlement discussions. What I'm describing to you, of course, is something that we have shared appropriately in closed session with our governing body. They're in the loop. And we wouldn't present anything to you that we don't believe that the other side is prepared to accept, right? So we have brought it to the point where we believe the parties have a meeting of the minds, and we're prepared to act upon that. But again, the mayor and council were adamant that we figure out a way, which is tonight, to share where we are with the public and the community that are impacted first. So what I think is really critical to any situation like this is to understand how we got here, the story. Everything has a context, and the context begins where it should, in the beginning. So everyone is well familiar with this area, Buckwoods, as it's, I guess, well known, or so there's the site. You can see what we're talking about. Again, everyone in this area is certainly familiar with it. So the history. We're going to take the history through two paths. We're going to walk you through the history of the litigation, and we're going to walk you through the history of the existing approvals and how those have met to find us here today. So from 1974 until 1995, Buckwoods was used as a dumping site for debris. Asphalt, concrete, railroad ties, all were dumped into this area over this roughly 21-year period. In 1999, JSM purchased the property from the prior owner. 8 years later, 2007, JSM sues the borough for allegedly dumping the debris that is now on the property that they own, arguing that the borough is responsible for the dumping and the debris because we were the ones who did it. The first lawsuit goes on from 2008 to 2017, and it's dismissed without prejudice. Without prejudice means that you have the right to sue again. It comes off the court docket. The court loves it because they don't have to deal with it any longer. But the litigant, the plaintiff, can still institute the lawsuit. So it's dismissed without prejudice. And during this period of time, there's a negotiation to attempt to settle the dispute, including there was some discussion about a possible land swap. I was not involved. I don't know the details other than, going through the history and understanding that there was this attempt to settle. Attempt fails. 2017, the lawsuit is refiled. In 2017, they also apply for a tree removal permit, and the court orders the borough to issue the permit to allow trees to be removed. The purpose of the tree removal is to get them out of the way of the remediation of the property. In 2008, a supplemental tree removal permit is filed and issued. 2019, that's 2018. 2019, the court, and this is a pretty seminal decision by the court. The court says that the borough is responsible for the dumping, and they set a schedule for the trial and damages. That is critically important, adverse to us, the borough, because now we're not going to be able to argue about who caused the problem. Now the debate is only going to be, or the litigation is only going to be, how much is the borough going to pay to address the problem? The court has concluded at this point that we are responsible. Now we're going to go to trial to decide how much money it's going to cost us. JSM seeks $6,261,842. We go through a process of exchanging expert witnesses, reports are filed. There's a whole back and forth between the borough, our expert witnesses. This is about the time that our firm becomes involved. And so now we're trying to fight to reduce that exposure. $6,261,842 is a huge, I think everyone understands this, a huge number to the borough. Your budget is just not that big. That's a huge, that'll be a huge impact to the borough's finances. In 2021, we have a big debate about how to calculate the recovery number. The borough, again, our challenge is defeated, and the court sets a trial date so now we're going to trial. And we're no longer trading expert witnesses. We're going to go to trial. The court ultimately gives us a little more time. Our firm makes the case that the damages need to be lower. And as a result of that 1 year, we at least reduce it from 6.2 to 5.3. So now we've reduced the exposure, but it's still a huge number, $5,312,000 that JSM is revising to claim as their damages. From 23 to 26, the courts, there's a lot of delay, not driven by us necessarily. We get a new judge, the courts get delayed, and we really don't get to a trial, but eventually we engage in settlement discussions. And for a good part of the last year or more, we've been back and forth with JSM trying to figure out a way to settle this case. We've gotten many, many extensions from the courts in an attempt to settlement, and most recently the court said, look, you've been working at this settlement for a very long time. You seem to not have succeeded. We've been in the court saying we're getting closer. We think they're there. We're done waiting. We're going to have a trial on March 24th, 2026. Trial. We had a case management conference just the other day. We asked the judge to give us a little more time. The judge said, look, because we said we're really close. We told them we have this community meeting to happen. We have to go back to our council. They have to vote on it. We're really close. The judge said, look, March 24th. We've been waiting a long enough time. So in the litigation, now, just again, because they're saying that we were responsible for $5.2 million, we're not conceding. If we get to trial, there's gonna be a whole battle about that number. That's the part of the stuff that we can't get into here, but that's what they're asking for. We think there's arguments to have that number be different and lower, and we would vehemently oppose having to pay that number. But a trial's a trial. Where it's going to land, so there's uncertainty about where that will end up. So here we are, litigation, trial expected this month. So simultaneously, what the JSM team was doing is they were moving forward to get their approvals to do a project. So in 2019, the borough adopts a multifamily residential overlay zone. This is included in our affordable housing fair share agreement. This particular project, with this approved project, which is a 75-unit project that I think everybody is probably well aware of, certainly the community, is a lot of people showed up at the planning board. A lot of people spoke, from maybe some of you here. So with that approval, they ultimately get their site plan application approved, and they get a subdivision application approved, and all they need to do now is build whole building permits. So they are ready to go. They are ready to start doing their project, and they're ready to litigate with us about how much money we're going to pay them. That is where we stand as we speak today. JSM about to go to trial with us to argue about whether we have to pay them up to $5.2 million. At the same time, they're ready to pull building permits. That's important because, as you can imagine, once they pull building permits and start building, there will be no longer an opportunity to settle. Right? They're off building their project. Now we're just litigating about the damages. So we are at this sort of seminal position where their approval process has moved forward. The litigation has been litigated to the point where we're going to go to trial. And now the governing body has to make a decision. So I'm going to remind everybody, although I'm sure many of you know it, this is the approved project that they can build, pull the building permits and start building right away. This is the elevations that they presented to, I believe, the planning board, but certainly to the community and us. These are important pictures because these will show you what it looks like from the two residential streets that bookend to the project. One of the things that the mayor and council have been really adamant about, and we'll get to the non-negotiable positions, was to never let the settlement dock building get taller than the approved building. And so this is the building they can build today. You can see we do benefit in part because of the geography. It's in a trough. So those homes are not, the height of the homes are not that much different than the proposed building, again, that they can build tomorrow when they build the building permits. So you can see from the eastern and the western side, South Fifth and South Seventh, what the sort of line of sight is from those communities and how those homes stack up against the proposed building. This is a picture of the approved project. What's important to note is there's only one way in and only one way out, right? The only way in is over by Mansfield Street. There is no other way into the project. The fire protection plan here if there was a fire, they have this sort of road that goes across the top of the building, goes to the South 7th. The expectation was if they had to fight a fire, you would drive a fire truck in that road and you would fight the fire from there. It was approved, passed fire safety. It's not ideal. It's simply not ideal. This is not the best way to deal with a fire or an emergency if it ever happened. You'll always also note that there's, but as far as the building is concerned, this is what they can build again tomorrow if they go for building permits. So the approved project. This is a fairly unique project, and I'll explain a little bit to you why. It has 75 residential units, but they are huge. The average residential unit in this apartment building is 2,500 square feet. There's homes that are not 2,500 square feet. It has 63 market rate units. You can see the bedroom count they have, which is fairly unique. You don't see a lot of rental projects with that many 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom units. So they have 18 4-bedroom and 7 3-bedroom. So huge units, lots of bedrooms. The parking ratio is about 2-bedroom. I think that's a nice way to think about parking per bedroom. It's about 0.9 per bedroom in this project. The estimated school impact for this project is 32 school children. So Rutgers has done studies where they surveyed the state of New Jersey. They've updated that study on a number of occasions. Applying that study to Highland Park, to the region, to this project, comes out with an estimated 32 school children. It has, as I described, again, a single point of access. One way in, one way out. It has a walking trail within the fire lane. So again, that fire lane was also sort of doubled as a walking trail. And they had a private tot lot. On the affordable side, this is driven entirely by New Jersey law, UHAC. That is the bedroom count that New Jersey law requires them to have. 2 1-bedroom, 6 2-bedroom, 4 3-bedroom. That's 15% of the requirement. Again, that is exactly what's in your fair share affordable housing agreement with Fair Share. So again, this is what can be done tomorrow. This is what it would look like. This is what they got approved. The settlement project. So first, when we went into the settlement, there were a number of items that the council was not willing to compromise. The mayor and council that were, directing the negotiating team. We were not going to write any checks, and we're not going to issue any debt. What do I mean by that? If we were to be responsible for $5 million payment, first place, we could never afford that in our budget in 1 year. We've done a lot of analysis on how we would pay that. But if we were able to find a way to finance it over time at the municipal interest rate, which is not terribly high, you're talking about $600,000 a year for 10 years. That's roughly the equivalent of your library budget. So imagine debt, roughly the equivalent of library budget going out the door every year for the next decade. That's the kind of check or debt we might have been facing if you don't settle. So the settlement could not involve us paying any money. We were not going to pay a nickel as a part of the settlement. That was one of the non-starters from the mayor and the council as we went into negotiation. No change to the building envelope. The council and the mayor were adamant that the building didn't get taller, wider, bigger. Now we had to live within the envelope. The envelope is the walls, the roofs. They were adamant that the community struggled to even have that size of a building there, and there was no way a settlement could change that. So we had to, our settlement discussion with them was no changing the building envelope. Obviously, no reduction in affordable housing. This is a community that I've learned certainly over the last decade or more that I've represented you. Affordable housing is a really important component of who you are and what you do. The mayor and the council echo that all the time to us, no reduction in affordable housing. And then they said, if we're going to do this, we have to have some other community benefits for us. There has to be something else that we get out of this if we're going to enter into some sort of negotiation, which, as you'll see, inevitably leads to more units. All right, so here's the settlement project. The unit count, goes up. This was probably the hardest part of the entire analysis that the mayor and council struggled with. They needed more units to make this work. That was part of their sort of non-negotiables. But importantly, the unit size goes down dramatically. So now the units are much smaller. And what you're going to see on that is that those smaller units actually impact significantly the number of school children coming out of the project, because those 3 and 4 bedroom market rate units produce a lot of school, children. 1 and 2 bedrooms, not so much. So the parking ratio stays about the same because the bedroom count doesn't change dramatically. The school impact is there. And then the other thing that we talked about was, as part of your site plan approval, there was certain landscaping that was agreed to and approved when you got your site plan approval. We told them that we needed to enhance, as part of this, the buffering. So there's a provision in the settlement agreement that where they've agreed to provide enhanced landscaping along the 2 residential streets in order to further buffer, further protect those streets from the sort of visual impact of the building. And our planner will be involved in helping them coming to an agreement about what exactly that enhanced landscaping will look like. The next one we thought as a team was really a huge benefit, which is 2 points of entry. You'll see in the depiction, you can see it over there. Now there's going to be 2 ways into this building, not one. That has significant benefits to a number of things. First, fire protection. Like there's 2 ways to tackle a fire. There's 2 directions to come from. You don't need to sort of pull a fire truck down this narrow lane alongside the building, which also opens up the ability to do landscaping. There's going to be 2 ways in and 2 ways out. Also, to the impact that undoubtedly we understand more residential, more traffic, it's going to be dispersed in a much better way. There's many more ways to leave the facility, the building, than there was before. Right before there was one way out, you go left, go straight, that was it. Now you that way, and then you can also exit out the back. One of the other items that came up in our discussion was the 2 sides of Highland Park were historically separated over the years. So there is no, as everyone knows that lives here, a road to connect one side of the community to the other side of the community. There's historical reasons that occurred that the mayor will talk to it more. I didn't live it or know it, but that are not what we should be proud of. Let's put it that way. And so putting in this connector road, we thought was a critical opportunity to not only make egress and ingress from the building, provide many more ways to get there, but it also will change traffic patterns in a way that we think will give the communities better access. So the developer has agreed as part of this negotiations to build that connector road. There's two pictures there because the topography, as you know, is complicated. One of the picture follows an existing path. The other picture is the ideal location. That'll be determined by engineers and as we go through the process. But in the agreement, the developers agreed to construct that connector. We also thought this might be a cool opportunity to connect this project and, frankly, all of the projects, the community around it, to the Meadows Trail. So they've also agreed to create a walking path. I'll show you in a bit, but you can't see it there. You'll see it in a second. A walking path that will take you. You can walk alongside their building onto this walking path all the way to the Meadows Trail. And then we also talked about having them construct a tiny public park, not huge, but with a playground, sort of like a tot lot that will also exist. So these are the components of the settlement project. Honestly, at every level, from our perspective, it's a huge win, and the price of that is the additional residential units. But again, we think we've ameliorated the school impact is not as significant, which leaves the traffic impact, which we think is lessened by the multiple ways to get in and out. So you sort of the traffic is going to be spread out, hopefully, as they exit and enter the project. So here you can see in a much bigger scale. So you can see, Terry tells me there's a plan. Okay, there's our tot lot. Okay, this used to be, you recall, this was going to be that fire exit. Now it's a better buffered landscaping area because there's no longer need to have this access. There's a way out over here, and then there's our connector road, which will be one of these two roads here, and then our trail, our walking trail that will connect to the existing trail. That every community up here could join through here, find their way over. So this is what the settlement project would look like. Again, the building is the same envelope. This is going to be underneath here is where they intend to put their waste stormwater retention facility, and that's what the project will look like. So, in so many ways, significantly improved from the existing project. Okay, so we tried to summarize here some of the key benefits to us. So, no payment to JSM. That could be as much as $5.3 million. If it's $5.3 million, that's the $600,000 a year number I gave you over 10 years if we finance it. We have negotiated a pilot in this transaction, which is estimated in year one. It goes up every year for the term. It's about $500,000. So, and by the way, that compares to what the taxes are currently at $13,000. So you can see that the rateable from this project goes from $13,000 today to $510,000. So a $500,000 swing. The financial swing to us between the avoided $600,000 bill and the new pilot payment is $1.1 million. That's the swing to us between the benefits of this project. So a pilot rateable avoided debt. The construction of the connector road, again, we view that as a huge benefit to the community. Improved emergency access, also very important. The public playground, the walking park, the substantially increased the number of affordable housing units, and then the enhanced landscaping buffer. So these are the components of the project that we viewed as the key benefits to the borough. So what are the next steps? Again, the mayor and council felt it was critical that we had this community meeting with the people most impacted by this. This will not be our only community process. The next one will be our meeting, when we will introduce and consider, and hopefully, and I can tell you, my firm will recommend, the governing body will, of course, do what they deem appropriate, the execution of a settlement agreement, which is a resolution. At that meeting, we will have another public hearing. The public will be able to participate and give us their thoughts. From there comes the withdrawal of the lawsuit. Right, that lawsuit no longer hangs over us. I talked about the financial exposure. I didn't talk to you about the legal fees. It's expensive. We're the lawyers. We pay us. It's expensive. It's not what I do. I don't like to. It's not what we like to make things happen. But you also can expect lawyers' fees. Trials are not cheap. Trials are not cheap. And then if you don't go your way, there's appeals, and there's appeals to appeals. So it's a long, drawn-out process. Then we have to adopt a redevelopment plan. So in order to make this project work, we're going to have to go through the redevelopment process that we're all familiar with, primarily to be able to do the financial agreement, but also to get through all of the agreements. We want to have a redevelopment agreement because redevelopment agreements are another layer of a contractual obligation. We'll have a settlement agreement, we'll have a redevelopment agreement. Those are ways to bind the counterparty beyond what will be bound to them when they go to the site plan for their site plan approval. The redevelopment and financial agreement get done after the plan. So this is pretty much a linear process. We have to do all these steps. You'll be hearing from us and the governing body multiple times along the way. And then, just like the original project, back to the site, back to the planning board for preliminary and final site plan approval. But there will be a as of right application. So when they get to the preliminary and final site plan application, they will be presenting a project that is compliant with the redevelopment plan and the existing zone. So this is where we have to get to. Step one being the settlement agreement, which we hope to. We're going to either beg and plead the judge to give us a few more weeks for the governing body to vote on it and to consider it, or we're going to have a meeting between now and then. So we're look. This has been when it was in 1970. This has been a long, drawn out journey, saga, epic challenge for Highland Park for way too long. We find ourselves now at the crossroads of making a choice. This mayor, this governing body has had their professional team working hard for a better part of a year, if not 2 years, to try and come to an agreement. There's been a ton of back and forth. We believe we now are presenting you with a solution. And as with every compromise, every settlement that I've ever been involved in, not everybody's always happy. But we believe and feel strongly, again, as the professional team, not our decision, but we're recommending to the mayor and council that they consider this, and we think this is, at the end of the day, a really good result in a very difficult situation. So the facts are what the facts are today. Litigation, trial, coming, possible exposure, $5.3 million, lawyers, lawsuits, appeals, years, while the 75 unit gets built. Or this is our exit ramp to this 3-decade or more, 4-decade or more story challenge. This is our exit ramp to get us, put this in the rearview mirror, get this project built, get us out from under the threat of a multi-million-dollar exposure, and have this no longer be a distraction, frankly, for a Highland Park that has, in my opinion, much more important and interesting things happening in its downtown that are out there that we've been working on for a long time, that are getting closer. That's where, at the end of the day, again, just your order, that's where our focus will be. And if we can get this behind us, it just allows us to spend all our resources in the places where I think our resources are going to matter most, which is it's moving us forward in those areas where we have controls, much more significant controls about what's happening than this situation where we arguably have a $5 million dagger hanging over us. So we want to open up the questions. Mayor, Terry, I don't know how you. I think I jumped Chris or did spot.
that's okay.
Good job.
So Chris is
Okay,
gonna
yes,
speak. I was on a roll.
Keep going, keep going. We just, yes, stay right there because I'm quite sure there's going to be a lot of opportunities where people want to ask questions because as you clearly pointed out, this has been a project forever. We didn't have microwave when this project started and we didn't have cell phone in our hands when this project started and here we are today. So yes, we're going to open up to Q&A right now. Yes, Alan?
This is actually going way back.
Microphone because we're recording for later. Please step to the microphone.
I go back to the early days, maybe even before Elsie was here. But is there any liability to the previous owner that JSM purchased the property from? Because it was the previous owner that owned the land when all this dumping took place. And you know, I've not really heard anything about that whole history. So
They are long gone from this earth.
Well, but somebody did it. And
Yeah, so that decision, I think I pointed to that sort of seminal decision where the judge concluded, let me go back, I go. So on this is sort of somewhat of a fateful day.
Yeah.
The court determines borough responsible for the dumping and sets a schedule for it. So the judge, that was litigated and lost. We're responsible. Yeah. But that is sort of an unfortunate day.
Right, I mean, I've been told that, but it just doesn't seem fair for the borough to.
Yeah, we're not talking about fair for the moment, I'm afraid.
Okay, on that same topic. Okay, on that same topic.
Speaking to the
okay.
microphone because we're recording it for others.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, on that same topic. Are we paying anything at this point for the remediation?
If we accept the settlement, no.
Oh, okay, well, that's relief. Anyway, just on the topic of who's responsible for this remediation. Buck owned that land. Buck was the one who, according to the filings, the judge's report said, no one has provided testimony to contradict Ray Buck's recitation of the borough's history of dumping on the property. The borough has come forward with no evidence to contradict his testimony, nor does there appear to be anyone living with relevant knowledge. Okay, so I would like to say that the borough was very negligent in this suit. In Buck's deposition, whatever it is, he said there were two different situations in which dumping took place. One was a road widening project and one was a sewer project. Okay, the road widening project was carried out on Route 27. This was a state road, it was a state project, and Buck was the contractor who removed the debris from that project. Also, the second thing was the sewer project. Buck was again the contractor on that project. So both these projects were under Buck's control, and Buck testified dishonestly that his company was not involved in this project. So the lawyers for the borough were negligent in not tracking down the documentation that would have linked Buck's company to this, to the debris that was on this property. So Buck caused the contamination of this property, and then it was his testimony that caused Highland Park to lose this suit.
Yeah.
That's tremendous negligence on the part of the borough.
Well, I mean, they were represented by a lawyer, not me.
What?
They were represented by a lawyer, not
But
me.
not you.
But yes,
But it
That's why
was,
we haven't.
but it is what it is, right? I mean, we can't fix that, it's done.
well, I guess hopefully the borough would have better procedures for monitoring what the lawyers are saying and doing so that we don't have this kind of situation in the future. That nobody in the borough, I don't think, examined what the lawyers were presenting to the court and worked with them on the history of the borough that would have enabled it, Highland Park to win that suit.
That's why we have a new attorney dealing with it.
Right, but it's also,
Yeah,
it was
we're trying to
also the
stay out of
borough itself in terms of, they didn't discuss it with other people like the Environmental Commission and other people who could have given advice to the lawyers.
Noted. Any other questions?
So you gave a pretty good explanation of what the benefits are from this settlement to the borough. So what makes it attractive to JSM to eat what they estimate is between 5.3 and $6.2 million in remediation costs?
Units,
Is it the number of units?
number of units,
The number of units.
the number of units.
So the profit they'll make on the increased number of units is basically, is the carrot for them to go into this?
I mean, look, they do their own math about why, like, that's how they negotiate, like we back and forth. I think they've done the math and they think that at the end of the day, this is also for them, there's uncertainty, right? About what they'll get. This gives them certainty. We would argue they're not going to entitled to the 5. They would argue that. So I think at the end of the day, they make their judgment. I don't try to figure out exactly why. I think it's a lot to do with the units.
And then they will be responsible for the excavation and removal of everything.
Everything.
How that gets dumped is their problem.
Sure.
So they're responsible for all the hauling and cleaning and everything else. And one of the main benefits that we get as a borough is to reconnect the town, not to split the town into, not to have us segregated, that there was a road there before, but for whatever reason, it was taken away and it segregated the town. Now we're putting the town back together and, it's time to rebuild with a different eye where we connect people and not have separate communities.
We were involved, at least Pam was involved with doing the earlier connection.
Yes,
And that was itself a long struggle. Having an actual
I think we're going to be over with that struggle with reconnecting the town. But those are one of the major benefits that we're going to get. And we're having the trail, we're having more green space in the area. We're having the lots that's going to be put in. So I think there's a lot of benefit that's going to be added to the entire town where we all benefit from this project. Because as many of you are aware, this has many decades that this has been going on before I moved to Highland Park. And I'd like to say before my son was even born, and he's going to be 32 this year. So this has been going on forever. So here we are, we're at this point where we either look at, say, the 75 units that they originally wanted, no connection to the town, more units involved, and we pay that $5-point-something million. Or we look at a project such as this with 148 units, we still get our affordables, and the town is connected, and we get more green space, more greenery. And none of the building doesn't tower over the community. It's not this gaping tower that's going to tower over the community. It's going to be pretty much aligned with the houses that's currently there. And it's all in the same envelope.
I have few questions. One on the removal of contamination. A lot of that are concrete slabs essentially that now stabilizing the slopes. So the devil is in the details. We know from engineer, because we have been fighting it for 30 years, that removal of these slabs will completely destabilize the slopes and cause to many of us that has property along those slopes, I talk about peats, will be pretty dangerous. So, I mean, even in what we're dealing with now, before that, what exactly he's going to do I mean, are those going to be retention walls? Let me ask another, so we do. I assume they are going to, where are the parking? How many cars are we talking about parking?
Sorry, back in.
The parking is underneath.
So they're going to dig under, right?
So
They're not filling it, they're
They-
digging under.
topography is such that it goes like this, so some of it you'll enter into the lot, and some of it you'll go down, because that's a function of the topography that, elevates.
And how many cars can park under?
We don't know.
I don't have the number. Let me give it a 30 second. It's the same exact number they had when they went to the site plan review last time. The number hasn't changed.
Because there is a difference between, so you have a total the same number of rooms, I didn't look, so you increase the number of units, but not the number of rooms because you.
They're smaller rooms, yes,
Okay.
because they were from
Right,
25,000
so
to
all this
13.
digging, as I'm a geologist and I know, all this digging will destabilize the slopes. So what, in all these settlements, what is the assurance that we won't have damage to our property?
So when they went through their original site plan application, that was discussed at the planning board, and I think it's memorialized in the resolution that approved the original project. And because the project isn't changing really, the stabilization of the embankment will I expect it to be similar to what they testified to and showed the planning board, and perhaps you were there when the issue arose. But on top of that, they're gonna go back to the planning board for the new project. So they'll be presented once again to the planning board, how they're gonna stabilize the site, and so as not to impact the properties.
So just to say, we have challenged in court and we lost because the courts are biased to leave. So I don't think we should go. I mean, we will lose no matter what it is. But in doing it, it's really important that it will be done in a proper way, that there are no damages, right? So all the benefits are nice, but if properties on both sides are damaged, the connector, everything, it's not gonna be greener because they already cut a lot of trees. So just to give you an idea, before you came, that was 6-7 years ago, we were in court. And he told the judge that that was on Friday, that on Monday, we're going to start work. Well, that was 7 years ago. He didn't say which years of Monday. So the guy, I don't mind he's a crook, okay, a rich one, and I don't think we should fight him. So I like this settlement. But I do know, as I said, the devil in the details. How are we making sure that it's not damage the people that have property there?
And you should definitely make sure you keep an eye on the planning board schedule, because they're gonna be back to the planning board.
Well, I mean,
But my point is, and if maybe we could put up the resolution memorialization, because I think it was addressed a little bit, didn't it, wasn't it, Chris?
we are dealing right now, Terry knows, with damage to slope that goes for 30 years, and we're running after the borough. I don't want any of us to run after that, so it should be legally bound that he's taking care of that.
Yeah, he will.
So,
I'll be down. Yeah,
all right.
thank you, sir.
I'll definitely keep a note. I've been taking notes, so those are things that one definitely want to keep on the forefront. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to get some clarification on some of the points you mentioned. One is, you mentioned a wider buffer. Do you mean the distance from here to the building or from this?
I think what I said was enhanced landscaping. The buffer stays within a couple feet the same, the size of it. They've agreed to enhance the landscaping in that area beyond what they're obligated to do with the 75-unit project. So it's not changing significantly, maybe a foot here or there, but it's putting in more landscaping in the area than was originally approved under the 75.
So I guess that brings me to the question then, because that was a big point of contention about the distance between the current street, the current property line and the building, and on both sides. Exactly how far will from the end of the property line to the building be?
within a matter of feet, the same as it was before.
I believe it was 40 feet. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
maybe it's 41 now, like it's within a matter, it's an indiscernible difference between what it was and what it was. But yeah, I think the zoning allowed up to 40, and it was more than that. Yes, yeah. So it's gonna be about the same as it was when it got approved in 2020.
Equal on both sides.
Equal. Yeah, yeah. Equal on both sides.
My other question was this road right here.
Yes, sir.
Now, I live right here.
Okay.
To go from here to here is very steep.
Yeah.
So I'm just confused. I mean, this does not seem conceivable.
I mean, I'm not the engineer, but I do understand that there are gonna be challenges for the engineers to sort that out, but that's the expectation. The same is true for that connector road.
But this is 3 times the size.
Yeah, more
gradual
room,
slope.
yeah.
This is from here to here. I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but that does not seem safe.
That's what their engineers say they can do. So that's what they're agreeing to do in a contract.
I know that before, when I was here, whatever, it was 3-4 years ago, and this was all presented, they had done traffic studies and this and that on that, where there's only one entrance.
Yeah.
Was there any traffic studies done? Because I mean, obviously, we all know what's gonna happen. 6th Avenue is a one-way street by the church, 5th Avenue, so they're all gonna come down this way, and it's just gonna increase the traffic down 7th and Grant. That's obviously what's gonna happen.
Well, on 7th, you have more access ways. You have 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and up to 11th that people can go from Donaldson and then to Crow's. So you have more ways to get in and out of town now, because the town, literally, it's opened up itself.
I understand what you're saying, Mayor. What I'm saying, 6 is a one-way street. They're not gonna go down that one. 8th is one way, okay? Now, South 7th is the first street that has a right off Woodbridge Avenue. So that would be the most convenient one. Because if you can't go down, if you could go down 6, you can't go out that way. It's one way going towards this. So when people are gonna be leaving, they're all gonna be leaving out this way.
Or what's the street right here? Because in the morning where the traffic bottlenecks for school.
Exactly.
So you have more ways to get in and out of the area instead of bottleneck in one place. You have more exit entrances and entrances to come into that area.
I mean, we
I
understand
understand that. I'm just wondering if there was if they evaluated.
So the traffic study will be part of the site plan approval. At this point, we were at the point where we're presenting an agreement, but they have to go through the same traffic study you saw last time. You're gonna have to do the same analysis, but I think we all understood that one of the detriments to the settlement is more traffic with more units, right? That was probably the only downside to this thing, frankly, is the new units, which we know doesn't really impact the schools, so that's not a big deal. But the traffic was our single, the one thing we struggled through the most, and at the end of the day, that's the sort of the price of settlement.
Now, I'm not an expert on how the units correlate to cars, but that number, parking ratio, and the amount of cars, that 148 units seems quite low, quite optimistic. And I'm just worried about overflow parking on the surrounding areas. Going from 75 units to 148, we would think that each apartment would have an average of at least one car.
Yeah, if the parking ratio is worse, if you do it on a per unit, obviously. We do it on a per bedroom, it's about the same. The parking, their view is there's enough parking for this project.
Have we done our own study about the parking?
Other than the ratios that we.
The question was asked, how many total parking spaces? We have 222. That's both underneath the building as well as in that area in the rear where the stormwater retention will be. And that's a 1.5 parking space per unit ratio, which is kind of in the normal range for a project like this. I mean, we won't know. I mean, what we do know is the redeveloper has a lot of experience with building this kind of product, and they believe this will work. And it ultimately will be a detriment to their project if people find it frustrating to park, because of this topography. This is not scientific, but I do think that people are going to be less likely to try to park on your street to avoid, because it's just not going to be as convenient because of the unique nature of this site. Not saying it's not going to ever happen if somebody has guests or whatever, but that's true for a lot of neighborhoods when there's peak demand. So we will be looking at it a little more closely. The only other thing I would want to mention, you mentioned everybody's going to go up 6. My theory, and it's as good as yours because we just have our own view of it, I think they're going to come out as 6, make a left on Mansfield and go up 5th if they're going in towards New Brunswick. And then if you're going to go out the back and cut up maybe Donaldson and go out, to Woodbridge Ave or whatever from there. So we do see that this rear access, while it might have a pinch point near your property, I'm not dismissing that. I do think will spread the impacts around, and the people who live there will learn the flows of Bartle, whatever's happening on North 6th, and things will shake out to find an equilibrium. But Joe said it, I'll say it again. I said we have to own it. It's going to have more traffic than the 75 units. I don't think you can study that away. But I do think the 2 points help mitigate that. And we will look into your concern about that grade change, because I am interested in finding that. But they seem confident they can make that rear accent happen.
So just one last thing, I was here, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago, and this was presented to us. And at the time, they thought it was the best possible thing, the best possible solution. And there was a lot of patting themselves on the back about how great, how we escaped, this. Now we're getting this. Again, the same deal. Oh, this is the best thing for the town. So I guess my question is, is this it? Like, are we done with or is it, we got to be back here next year? Oh, we come back. This is the best possible.
No, I think in fairness, the they, for the first part, you're describing as the planning board, right? That's the they.
I don't know. It was like.
I go back on this, and I remember your last name, but I can't remember your first name. Can you?
Jim.
Jim, thanks. Your memory goes back. What you're recalling was when we negotiated as part of our fair share housing settlement, that's an affordable housing process, which is outside of the Buckwoods litigation, outside of our own master planning.
Right, I had no idea about that.
And so that was, we felt very proud of limiting it to 75 units. We could not get that wrapped up. The Fair Share Housing Center felt strongly that we needed to include the site in our plan, even though we didn't need it in order to meet our obligations. And we felt we at least limited it to 75 units, knowing how large that site was. We felt that was a victory. We felt the design and all those controls we put in the zoning, which Chris worked very hard on, were things we patted ourselves on the back, and we're patting ourselves on the back again because we're essentially presenting the same building carved up differently on the inside with these new features on the outside. So I hear what you're saying though, but I do think those non-negotiables were like, we couldn't face you saying, oh, remember how we thought this was a good building? And now it's twice as big. Like, we didn't want to have that meeting. So we were able to figure out a way by carving up the units on the inside of the building. It does. So I hear what you're saying, but I think I still take some pride in the limit that we had at that time.
I would only add that if the team, I wasn't part of that, but if the team had it limited up to 75, say they got
I
100.
sweated that one. I had to say something.
But if they had not successfully held down the unit count, there would be no settlement here because there would be nowhere to go. Right? If Terry hadn't held the line at 75 and the mayor and the council, and it was 125, we would have nowhere to give them more units without going bigger. So certainly not intended, but keeping that number down gave us room to get to a solution without increasing the building envelope.
I understand what you're saying, and, you know, I'm happy for all the work that you've been doing, put into this. Just wondering is there an option, third option? I mean, just because a lot of people just don't like, you know, the building at all. You know, I think connecting the two parts of town, that's great. But, you know, the building itself and the impact it's gonna have, you know, it just seems like the litigation almost sounds like it was a cudgel to force this project on us. So is there a way just to walk away from it at all, or is this where we're going? And
I mean, also, MRS had active litigation, right, settlement discussion. If we're going to war, you know, I'm going to war on your behalf, but I am recommending this. So.
Hi, I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
I moved in, I live at 242 South 6, and I don't know why I was never informed that that was a dump site, and I'm concerned about my health. The only reason I'm here today is because it was posted on the bulletin board in the building I live in where I rent. And I'm right there. Why didn't anybody ever tell, like, what's the health repercussions for me? And the water too, the sewers.
I mean, I'm just a lawyer, I'm not a scientist or an engineer. But we can probably ask someone officially, but as far as I know, there's been no groundwater contamination that I'm aware of. And we can triple check. And
That I'm aware of.
yeah.
And I'm down.
They did a lot of
I'm up.
testings and nothing has,
I'm on the ground.
And I think it's mostly sort of construction debris, not, for example, hazardous. There's no, again, things like chromium and things that we, you know,
We're not sure of that,
yeah.
right?
But we have no reason to believe that there's any immediate and or past impact on your health, but we'll triple check.
yes.
Because I'm just a lawyer.
And one thing I was gonna say, could you continue, Ms. Mayor, I don't know, I think it was wonderful that the director of housing on Sixth Avenue where I live put that up, but since I'm living there, nothing was ever put up. I didn't even know what Bush Woods was. I didn't even know. I was
What-
told that they were building something and that's why there was something going on and that's why I never knew anything. If you could continue to let Denise Blake or whoever's in charge, continue to put that wonderful post you put up in the building.
I want to say thank you to Director Hurley, who is here with us tonight. She made sure that those buildings had that information posted. And we have been working closely since she's been here to make sure that all the information is published in all the buildings, not just on this, but on everything else that we do. We have been working quite collaboratively.
I don't usually come to the meetings. This was something.
I'm happy that you're here.
Glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks for coming.
There's no question that the site is contaminated. In the settlement, how are you gonna clean it up? Or how is JSM gonna clean it up?
They're gonna remove all the debris. They're gonna remove it.
They're not gonna cap it, they're just gonna remove
I
it.
think they're removing it.
They're removing.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, can I go again? I would like to see the map, but I also wanted to say that when we negotiated it, we have environmental lawyer and a few experts. Their opinion was that it's better to cap it because removal will destabilize the slopes.
Well, what I know is we're not paying for it, so we'll get back to the community.
So it's really important, as I say, to know exactly what he's going to do
I hear it.
because again, those debris are really now stabilizing this whole thing.
So, and it may be a combination of removal and stabilize. So,
I mean, it will affect also his building, right? If those things come down, but it'll affect the whole thing.
we're gonna get back, I think, we're gonna get back with a much more detailed explanation of how it's gonna happen.
Can we, can you project this map? Yeah, so we can see also, thank you.
Joe, I wanted to add some, since you're on this one, it was bugging me.
Maybe we could put the little red lights up and point out different
So,
things.
so I wanted to mention something about this. The reason we have two alternatives, this blue alternative kind of mirrors where the current walking and biking path is. And, part of us, we prefer a more of a grid approach, so where you kind of recreate more of the street pattern. But because of the unique nature, there is also, I think, a cap in this area. There's going to be a lot of engineering, like Joe mentioned, TBD, but this is, if I was betting, it's probably more likely the way because of the topography and the other things we already know, having done that project. But I also wanted to make it clear that in addition to for vehicles, we will be maintaining the bike, it's going to become a one big path for bikes and pedestrians, a multi-use path, I guess is the technical term. So we're not swapping it out for the road, we're going to have it plus. So that was something I wanted to make sure. It was something that we've pushed really hard on to make sure we didn't lose that protected space and that connection to the meadows and to Donaldson Park. And then again, this is tentative here, but the idea is, wouldn't it be, and this was something that we brainstormed with JSM, and we're negotiating who does it, because this is borough property, but that this would then kind of create a connection to Donaldson, not only for our borough residents, but an amenity to the development. So some of these are win-wins, as well. So,
Terry, where is the playground and what's in the back?
So this is the location. This is actually a small borough lot right at the mouth of the property and the entrance to the property that they would build it on. We haven't really designed it other than to say it will be something. So if people have thoughts on that.
Where would be the access for the trash?
That, I don't know how that was discussed. If that was
And
discussed.
recycling, I mean, those are big trucks. Where are they going?
Agreed, and I'm sure a lot of that was discussed when the original proposal went forward, and Chris was our planner. So I
Let
could
Chris
certainly,
jump in on this part now.
Hi, Chris Lucento, planner. So just on issue of the trash, it's not any different from the 75 unit project just approved. You can see it there at the top left. It's also in the same place, top left. So a truck will be able to come in, front end load to the back, and then exit back out. So it's the same locations before. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more trash, so the dumpster enclosure might be resized a little bit more. But because of the bedroom counts is only going up a little bit, it's relatively about the same size, but same location.
Stay right there, Chris. I think another question is coming.
So when the borough originally put in the bike path, which is sort of represented in the blue. So the reason that never became a road, it was considered a bike path, is because we couldn't dig into the subsurface there, because the NJDEP said we would have needed a landfill disruption permit. So that's a concern that we're gonna have to deal with.
Yes.
I mean, I like the yellow configuration more than the blue, but that was an issue that we had to deal with, so we'll probably have to deal with that again.
Yes. Definitely.
That's partly why there's multiple options, because there's issues to go through.
In the approved project, this is for stormwater. And there's nothing here to handle stormwater. You got a whole lot of area.
So Mr. Williams, that part of the site is actually not part of the project. So when we were, part of the non-negotiables was they had to maintain the stormwater on their own property and not involve any additional properties of our own, because that would mean more trees being removed.
So we'll see this sprinklers to the planning board.
Oh, they'll have to figure it out onto their own property.
At this time, we're gonna see if there's anyone on Zoom that have any questions.
If you're on the Zoom call, and we do have about 5 attendees,
Persons.
raise your Zoom hand if you would, if you'd like to be called.
All right, now we go back to the audience if there's, to the live audience, if there's any additional questions. Well, seeing that there's none, I'm gonna ask that we conclude this portion, and we are gonna, the mayor and council will be reviewing this and moving, having more discussions to move forward with this. And then we will be having more community conversations as we move forward with the plan. So with that said, thank you so much for coming. It's been a forever plan, and I'm hoping that we can get to a resolution at some, this year, and we can move forward. Thank you all. We'll keep you posted.